Hello everyone, I hope you all had a relaxing weekend. In this video, I would like to give a summary of the discussions we had last week. If you remember, in the self-introduction activity, I asked you to talk about the top 3 things that pop up in your mind when you see or hear the words differentiated instruction. So what I did is that I have collected all your responses and organized them in a spreadsheet. So each row represents each of you, and each of you are giving the top 3 things when you see or hear differentiated instruction. In this video, I want to show you a visual that I created when I looked through the responses that you gave me and kind of summarize our initial thoughts on differentiated instruction as a whole class. So this is what I did. I first very quickly skimmed through all the comments and responses that you gave me, and I identified a couple of themes or categories, and I assigned, for example, I see a lot of us are talking about learners, and a lot of comments are related to the strategies for differentiated instruction. Also, we were talking about the goals and the outcomes we are hoping to achieve through differentiation. A couple of us are talking about challenges, also mentioning the incorporation of technology, or talking about a few specific elements that are critical for successful differentiated instruction. So these are the themes that I saw from your responses, and I assign a different color for each of the themes. So if and then I go back to your comments and kind of color code each of the comments in here. For example, I see some of the comments like this comment is talking about special education students. So this is about learners. So I'm going to assign the yellow color to this particular comments. So I'm going to color this yellow. And another example, okay, I see another comments related to learners. So I'm going to assign the yellow color to this cell as well. So this is what I did to color code your responses. So once I'm done with the color coding, I would get a spreadsheet like this. This still looks a little bit messy, so the next thing I did is to sort these cells by color. You maybe already know this, maybe you don't. In Excel, there is a function that allows you to sort the columns and rows by color. So if you're curious, it's in here. You click data and then you go to sort, and then you can see you can sort on value, but you can also choose sort on cell color. So this is what I did when I sort these responses. Finally, after I color code everything and after I sort everything, I created this visual, and you can see I organized them based on the number of responses under each theme, so that I can have this pattern which is a little bit more clear for me to see. And to very quickly go through this, I can see the largest theme emerging from our discussion is this actually strategies. A lot of us are talking about strategies for differentiated instruction. When you go to the textbook, you will see very specific models and the strategies that are introduced for differentiation. But since this is our first discussion and I only ask you to kind of give us some initial thoughts on understanding. So in our conversations, a lot of us are talking about strategies in a pretty general and a broad sense. For example, many of us saying we need to be flexible, we need to be adaptable, try to adapt the content for meeting students' needs, or making sure the materials are relevant. So we are talking about pretty general strategies. The next theme I see is about students, and we realize that differentiated instruction is student-centered, and also we realize that students come in with different characteristics, with different needs, and with different backgrounds. So there is a lot of variety and diversity in our classroom. So I'm glad that we already developed this awareness on this issue. The third category, or the third theme I see, is I would say, the goals and outcomes that we're hoping to achieve through differentiation. We are talking about, we hope students getting more confidence, we hope students are more engaged, or just simply saying, I hope differentiated instruction is really effective for all students. So these reflect, or these kind of relate to the goals and purposes that we hope to achieve through DI. And then a couple of us mention the specific elements that are often integrated into differentiation. And these elements include assessments, include grouping, include student choice. And following that, I think many of us also realize it is not easy to plan, design, and implement a successful differentiated instruction. There are lots of challenges. It is time consuming. It takes a lot of time and efforts, and it's hard to manage. So there are a couple of comments describing the challenges and the difficulties. And also some of us are talking about the role of technology and the potential of technology to kind of enhance and support differentiation. And I have a last category that I did not assign any color. And one thing I would like to mention about this is that I see a couple of us mentioning the word individualized or individualized learning. So I just want to share a couple of notes about this individualized learning or model. If you read through the textbook, I think in chapter 1 in our textbook, Tomlinson, the author, specifically talked about the difference between individualized instruction and differentiated instruction. And she emphasized that differentiation is not individualization. And there are a couple of challenges and concerns with individualized learning. For example, it is not feasible to develop individualized lesson plans and work with each individual in your classroom on a regular basis or for the whole time. So it is not efficient, it is not very feasible. So this is a major concern with individualized learning. And another challenge she mentioned is this: when you try to implement individualized learning, you would have to assess each individual student and identify their precise entry level. And kind of based off that, you will need to desample your instruction or your learning materials to a pretty large extent in order to match every single student's level. And this often would make learning fragmented and largely irrelevant, and it would become pretty difficult for the learners to see the connections of the different facts or knowledge pieces, and become difficult for them to develop an overarching understanding for the big picture of the concept that you're trying to teach. So this is another challenge with individualized learning. So this is something I just want to point out and make sure that you understand there is a difference between DI and individualized instruction. So this is a kind of a visual that represents our initial thoughts and understanding of DI. And I will put this video into our discussion, and I think we have a discussion area in this week. So under Module 1 readings, I will put this video in here so that you can take a look at this visual and reflect on your own thoughts and understanding, and think about, is there anything that you haven't thought about but mentioned by your classmates? Additionally, as you complete the reading materials this week, I would like you to think about, is there anything based on your reading you would like to add to this visual here, to make it more comprehensive, to make it more thorough, and maybe even more accurate. So I hope this is helpful and at least gives us some ideas about what differentiated instruction means to us as a whole class. Let me know if you have any questions.